Hello everyone, and welcome to the latest instalment of the OCC's What's Your Story interviews. Today I'm talking to Lisa Marie Malia from No Fluff Communications. Morning, Lisa.
Morning, James.
Morning, good. Great to have you here. So tell me a little bit about who you are and what you do.
Yeah, thank you. So I'm Lisa Marie Malia and I'm a freelance marketing consultant based here in Banbury. My business is No Fluff Communications. So we're all about helping people and their businesses be seen and heard for all of the right reasons.
Cool, brilliant. So I noticed on your website that you have a lovely little catchphrase that says, ditch the fluff. So tell me, how do you help your clients ditch the fluff?
Yeah, it's a great one, and it's funny enough, James, the business name is something that people do. It does stick out for them on LinkedIn, and they always ask that question. So obviously, it's doing its job for me. But I focus on helping. I focus on helping people and their businesses create strategies and solutions that save them time and money on their marketing. Marketing, I think, to some people still feels a bit like a dark art, and it really isn't. It's actually quite simple. So it's by understanding what their challenges are in their business. So that could be a challenge because they're changing market or trying to focus on a new customer group, or launching a new product. Or it could be simply that the business has grown so quickly that they haven't had time to put some plans in place to how they're going to effectively market it and how they're going to get their messages out there consistently. So it's all about the planning and the strategy side of it, and that allows you to use your budget to maximum efficiency rather than trying to do everything here, there and everywhere in little quantities. It's about having a real focus on your efforts.
Okay, so your market's quite a crowded space, the marketing market sector.
Yeah.
And there's obviously a lot of people who are segmented within that sector as well. So who focus on very specific solutions. So are you focused on a particular way of helping your clients, or are you all things to all people?
No, so obviously my background's all in marketing and is on the strategy and planning side, and that has spread across traditional marketing such as advertising, public relations and social media. So I have experience in most aspects of marketing, but like anything, you do have to niche and become a real specialist to be able to add that sort of extra value. So for me, it is around the planning and strategy side. So a lot of what I do for my existing clients is consultancy, which means actually helping them to articulate and get onto paper what their challenge is and how we might go about working towards solving that. So that can be literally a conversation, a sounding board, probing them with some ideas, asking the right questions, and then they might go away and do that work themselves or use in-house teams to do that work. Or they may want me to come on board on a more retained basis to work with them or their teams to be able to manage some of those activities and implement. And that could include public relations, press release writing and dealing with the media, running and organising events and roundtables. Social media content strategy is something that's very hot on the topic since we all went virtual. Obviously, it's been growing anyway, but now businesses are operating more virtually or perhaps doing hybrid working solutions. They're having to find other ways to communicate with people. And while technology is a wonderful thing, it's become an incredibly crowded space. So more people are online, more people are using email marketing, and more people are using social media. So it's about how do we cut through that noise so the customer's messages are heard and received, not just going into spam boxes or being ignored. And then sometimes it's around training and workshops and solutions for existing teams, where I might just come in to help onboard a new person, to train them for the first time in marketing and managing social media. So it is varied. Focus primarily on business to business clients. That's not always the case because my experience does extend beyond, but it's mainly professional services for business to business.
Okay, cool. So you're really sitting in that strategy space, but you will do some social media and do some of the delivery as part of that, but with the view to actually training somebody up or getting that business team that they can bring on board the right person to take over that kind of role as well.
Yeah, so it's really important to me that part of when you're working with someone, like I think the first off, a consultant is there primarily to consult. It's not the most cost-effective resource to retain a consultant for long periods of time. You do bring them in for specific challenges or projects. That being said, a lot of clients get used to, you build that relationship of trust and they prefer to have you around. So that's why a lot of them will move to a 1 day or 2 day a month consultancy basis to touch base and manage their teams. But we do get involved in the management and implementation. And when we do, that does tend to be around the public relations and social media content creation. So helping them create a strategy for content that isn't overwhelming, that they can commit to and be consistent with, and that feels like it's the right tone and voice for the customers. So a lot of the hard work comes right at the start, and it's helping the clients to really understand who they want to get the attention of, who's their target audience. Because I think as business owners, we can often be guilty at having a product or a service to sell, and our focus is on what we're going to say about the product or service, and we're not actually thinking with that customer hat on of, well, actually, what problems does that solve for the customer? And yeah, talking in that way is very different than just looking at the features and benefits of the product you're wanting to sell.
Right. So do you find the biggest pinch point for your clients is the fact they don't have a strategy, or that they're scared about actually putting something out into the world?
I find it's more, they've got sort of a rough plan in their minds. They know they're very driven. Most of the clients that I work with are successful businesses that have been going some time, so sort of 5+ years. So they're really scaling up or growing or entering new markets. So they're very seasoned business people. They have done some aspect of their marketing in the past themselves, and actually it's more about having that sounding board to bounce ideas off, to check they're going in the right direction and to hold them accountable, because they are so busy. And as you all know, James, as a business owner, you don't just do the one thing that you started your business that you love. You become the accountant, you become your marketing person, and everything in between. So it's helping them to take the headache out of marketing, because we're just having a really clear, simple solution of what we're going to do and when, and that makes it them more accountable and less stressful, because they feel they're focused.
Do you find a lot of small business owners hold all that information in their head, and actually by creating a spreadsheet or a document or a plan, something that's physical, it frees up their headspace and they're actually much more engaged?
Yeah, absolutely. I think we're all a bit guilty of that. I mean, I do that myself as well, especially when you've been practicing something for years. You get used to the fact you know what you're doing. I think when it's not your main job, it's important to have some kind of plan or strategy. And strategy is one of those really strange words that can really scare people. They all of a sudden think of these 40-odd page documents that get written, that look beautiful, but nobody actually uses from a practical point of view. So what we do here at No Fluff Communications is to understand how that client best works. So some of my clients' plans are literally centered around regular meetings with each other and a follow-up document with bullets of what we discussed and what our actions are. And that's all they need. Others that have teams need, Excel spreadsheets or documents or social media content planning calendars, so that everybody knows what everyone's doing at any one time. So again, even the planning and the strategy side of what we do here doesn't necessarily conform to the same template per client. It's built on what works for them and how they like to manage their processes as well.
Okay. So I know we mentioned a little bit about your clients and the types of businesses, but if you could sum up your ideal client, what would they look like?
So they would be an established business, 5+ years usually, within professional services or property. A lot of my background has been in financial services, which is quite a different beast in terms of the regulations and the rules. So you have from a marketing perspective, we have to go through certain compliance rules. So we can't just send tweets and posts and blogs and content out without somebody with that very detailed knowledge of the products overlooking it first. So I quite like clients that have got a challenge, something to overcome, something that's exciting, that both them and I don't necessarily have all the answers to right now, but actually it's that collaborating and working together to come up with a solution and plan, rather than necessarily doing this cookie cutter marketing of the same solution for every client. So collaboration is key for me. Somebody who's bought into the marketing process is all very well coming in to do the management and implementation for them to save them the time and hassle, but they need to be putting the knowledge and input of their experiences and skill set into it and own part of it for it really to work and be personal and cut through a lot of what their competitors are doing. It's that personality and thought leadership piece from the management team that's really important. So I have two phrases that usually have to come up when we're having a discovery call with a potential client, and that is that they must want to be the best of the best in their sector, that they really strive to deliver something of quality. Being the best of the best, and that they must be striving to make a difference. Obviously that difference is different depending on all the clients, but I find if we meet on those two values, it tends to be a pretty good fit.
But I think it's also really important that you touched on as well, that it's not a one size fits all solution for clients.
No.
It has to be adaptable. And I think the other thing you've said that I've kind of from a personal point of view is having actually done my marketing myself, it actually means that I can then, when you talk about how you measure the return and how you do the implementation, it's actually much more valid than simply being, I'm going to give you all my social media to do, Lisa. Here you are. And then 6 months down the line, I'm complaining about the fact that I don't seem to be getting what I want out of it. Yeah,
absolutely. So I think ROI, or return on investment, is a really interesting point, because anybody that's investing anything in their business obviously wants to see what they're getting in return for it. However, what I've found working with clients is what you choose to measure, again, is very different. So we have, especially with social media, you have things that we call vanity metrics, which basically give you an indication that your content is doing something for you. So how many followers you've got, how many people like your post, tweet or comment. But if your aim and the business goal is to position yourself as a thought leader on a particular subject, those metrics don't necessarily translate to whether, showing you whether you're hitting the mark. So I think it's about getting that plan right from the start of what your individual goals are and how they attribute back to the business, because it's not always financial. Some of my clients aren't looking for lots of leads and sales. It is around making them be seen as an authoritative voice in their sector. So the way that we would measure something like that instead is how many comments they get as a result of posting a piece of content or appearing in a publication, or how many people saw it and proactively outreach to that person for their knowledge or insight. So getting the metrics right are really key, because it's like comparing apples and pears. If you're starting off measuring the wrong thing, then the results, they don't mean anything really.
But as somebody who delivered my own social media and things like that, when you're talking about how you measure that return, because I've done that myself, I actually have a good idea of probably what my outcomes need to be. But at the same point, because you're more in that strategy role, you're able to have realistic conversations that then would guide me to actually having realistic things to measure
Yeah.
rather than the pie in the sky stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, or even actually what's really nice is when you've got a client that is doing or has done some element of their marketing in the past, is you can actually spend a little bit of time doing an audit or reviewing their past activities, and find out what they're doing now, why they do it, is it working, if so, which parts are working, which bits aren't working, which bits they don't enjoy. And actually that's quite an interesting conversation, because you could be getting lots of engagement on your social media but no sales. And if your goal was to get sales, then it doesn't really matter how many likes, shares, comments and follows you've got, it's not achieving your results. So yeah, so moving the markers and making sure that the activities are right. And sometimes it's as simple as including call to actions. People, especially with social media, if they don't have a plan, they're more focused on getting quantity out rather than quality, and not thinking about what that person reading that post needs to do as a result of it. So you could share a blog post, for example, and just share the title. But if actually what you want people to do is share it for you, because your audience right now might not be the intended audience, you could include something in your tweet, for example, like please retweet. So you get 12 times more engagement and shares and retweets by asking people to retweet than you would just to put a post out. Equally, if you want people to watch a video or read a blog or get in touch, social media is a really crowded space. So you need to not be afraid to tell people what you want them to do, because most of the time we're just idly scrolling past, when we've got a 5-minute break. But if I follow James and I support what James does, and I see a tweet from him and he says, please retweet, whether the content is relevant to me or not, to support James, I'm more likely to do what he's asked me to do. Yeah. So yeah.
Oh yeah, one of my mantras is, if you don't ask, you don't get. It's as simple as
it's
that.
So true.
So,
there's a nice way to do it though, isn't there? And
yeah,
I
exactly.
think it goes back to understanding your audience as well, and who that follower or target audience is right now, and how they like to be communicated to, and in what forms, and even sometimes down to what time of the day. So you might share your blog on your social media, but actually in the morning they're likely to be at work or dropping the kids off. They might see the post and mean to come back to it, but they're unlikely to have the time to sit there and read it. Whereas if you shared your blog post at lunchtime or in the evening after the kids are in bed, the chances of them reading that full blog post are a lot higher.
Do you find though, getting people to put calls to action is like quite a cultural shift in the business? Because I being a super networker that I am, I meet lots of people, and when you're saying to them, if you don't ask, you don't get, people go back and go, I'm not really very comfortable in doing that. And actually, I look at it, if you don't tell people you want them to do something, how do they know? I mean, some people will intuitively know, but the vast majority of us don't. So do you find that that's a big cultural shift within your client organizations?
Yeah, I think there's that term, isn't there, of us being very British and apologetic for everything. And I think it is true. And I guess the way we sort of tackle that with clients is that you would say that you might not be as forward, so to speak, if you were meeting in person to ask that person to do the thing that you're instructing them to do on social media. But you need to remember the channel you're on and the method you're using. So if it's acceptable on that form and that channel, and it's proven to get results, then yes, use it. Whereas when you're meeting somebody at a networking event, for example, you might be there more for the social aspects and be open to where conversations may go. You might not be going there with the sole purpose to, shove your marketing literature down their neck and get an immediate sale. But yeah, so it's about understanding the channel or the method you're using and what's appropriate for that. And I think that can help clients feel less embarrassed sometimes about, telling people what to do, because you can demonstrate that this is what lots of people do on those channels, and that's what you need to do for it to be effective.
So it's having the right solution, the right call to action for the right place that you're in, really.
Yeah.
Yeah, cool. So
and having a nice mix of your content as well, because, you know, I mean, we always say that you should have an 80-20 rule. So 80% of your content should be there to educate, inform, excite, just for fun, entertainment purposes. And actually only 20% of your content should be there for what we call the cold, hard, direct sell. And the important bit is to have a nice mix of that within your planning, especially from social media perspective, so that you are actually adding real value to your audience 80% of the time, stuff that's going to solve their problem, entertain them, or be an interest. And then when you're asking for the sale, it's only 20% of the time. It's not being bombarded.
Yeah, cool. So something else you touched on a little while ago was you talked about collaboration, and obviously part of the OCC is focused on building dream teams and collaborating together. So I'd like to know how you collaborate in your business, not with clients, but with other people, and also how you benefit from being part of the OCC with collaboration as well.
Yeah, so my business, because I am a freelance marketeer, has grown as a result of collaboration in two ways, really. When I started off, it was networking, purely because I was working on my own from the first time rather than managing a big team. So it was a social aspect. It was also to find and speak to people who had run their own business before about some of the pitfalls of running your own business. So if you can learn from somebody else's mistakes, that's great. You know, you could leapfrog a few, you know, or for connections. So for example, I wanted an accountant. So going to your local networking event, you can ask people for their personal experiences of who would be a good local accountant for somebody new in business. And then when I became a little bit more established and clear on, you know, my exact offering and where I might need help in order to grow my business and be able to serve my clients, I found a couple of freelancers that had a very similar values and work ethic to me, that I could collaborate with to be able to bring them into specific projects, to be able to serve clients that were much bigger, so that we almost could build a mini agency team that's bespoke to the client. So I do that with a number of freelancers and smaller businesses, that if a client comes to me and says, I need this solution delivered, I build them a bespoke team from my network that's perfect for them in terms of their skill set, and that's cost effective for them because they're then getting the knowledge of all of these very experienced people, and I am managing them, so they don't have the headache of managing various very experienced people, but at a lot cheaper rate than it would be to employ a whole team or a whole band of consultants. So yeah, so that's how I've kind of grown my business, through collaboration. Business bars and the OCC has been great for my business because, you know, working in your business can be very lonely, and we might be experts, in my case, in marketing, but I am not an expert in sales, for example, or HR. So having that small, trusted group of people and professionals that you can lean on and ask them for their ideas or recommendations, I think is absolutely vital to help business owners continue to want to work on their own and enjoy it, but also to be able to upskill themselves with the people that, you know, they need around to grow their business in the right direction.
Yeah, it's very much OCC. It's that thing around creating those water cooler moments.
Yeah.
When you're a business owner on your own, there isn't somebody. There's a sounding board that you would have if you were working in a larger organisation. So the OCC allows us to create that opportunity, I think.
Absolutely. And I think, you know, a huge part of that for me working for myself, the main reason was to be able to work flexibly around my family, but while still doing what I love, which is really interesting since obviously the pandemic. A lot of organisations are looking at how they can be more flexible to be able to retain good quality talent. And that's definitely something that I struggled with when I had my first son, was to find somebody that would employ someone as experienced as me, but on part-time or flexible hours. So hopefully that's changed for the better for a lot of employees out there. But yeah, for me, being a business owner, those moments where you just doubt yourself because you're used to being in a big business or having a big brand name behind you, giving you a job title that says you're worthy. All of a sudden you go out on your own and you have those days where you just think, have I done the right thing? Or, do I know what I'm doing? Or I've got no idea how to solve this problem. Co-working clubs like the OCC are great because we're all business owners. We've all been there. We've all had those moments. And when you realize that it's not just you that goes through those thought processes, it's really empowering to keep you going forwards and have that benefit of a bigger team and not just be sat in your little cupboard bedroom on your own.
It's also that thing that so when you're a small business owner and you're starting out, it's also so easy to sell yourself short, and then actually what you do is you build a rod for your own back in the fact that you're taking work that you probably wouldn't really want, or you're not charging enough for it. And then actually, as your business grows, you've got those very high maintenance customers, solutions that actually probably don't generate your revenue. And from a marketing perspective, I'm sure that's the same in the fact that it's very easy to get sucked into the things that don't create that return, whatever that return is. Yeah.
I think with marketing, there are so many solutions out there, so many channels out there. It can be very overwhelming, and you can feel that you need to be everywhere on every channel. And we always say to our clients that it's better to focus on a couple of areas and do it really, really well and consistently, and then upscale from there. So once you've got your foot in the table and under the table and you know what you're doing, and if you're confident enough to, start a newsletter or another social media channel, then expand. But don't start off and do a poor job on everything, because there's a bit of unraveling that you only have so much time and so much budget. And it's about understanding where to focus those efforts for maximum value back for you or for the client.
And certainly from my personal perspective, doing a little bit but doing it really well gives you the skills that you can then move into other areas really rapidly, because the skill set becomes transferable. Okay, you have to learn probably 20% new stuff, but actually your fundamental skill set is there already, and your content is there as well, isn't it?
Yeah, and I think it's that habit forming side of things. Again, especially with social media, it's a really good example of channel that moves really fast and is very content hungry. So I think if you were to start off as a business and potentially be out there on 5+ social media channels, that is very overwhelming. And also what we see a lot is people, they create some content or a post, and actually they schedule it to go out on all of their channels, but they're not taking that extra 5 minutes to make it specific to the channel they're posting on. So a really good example is people that post to either Instagram or Facebook and have the same thing go out on that channel. So quite often when you're sharing the Instagram post, which is all around sharing beautiful aspirational photography, and then you tweet it or pop it on Facebook, it doesn't include the image. And we know that, if you want more engagement and your post is talking about a beautiful photo, it's really disappointing as the follower to then go, oh, there's no photo. Or equally have to click on the link to see the photo and then have to log into another social media platform. You're not going to bother, everything moves so fast. So I think by having the understanding that the piece of content you're creating is specific for that channel, and has been written in a way that's going to work and perform well on that channel, and then maybe take an extra 2-3 minutes to just tweak it slightly so it's perfect for another channel, is still a lot more effective in your time than one doing it badly and getting no results, or having to start every piece of content from scratch. Is having that plan and knowing what you're going to share and how to adapt it per channel is actually saves you time and money.
Right. Okay. Brilliant. So my last question to you is, we obviously had 2020 was the year that was tough for everybody, but we're now coming out of the pandemic, which is good news. So where do you see your business growing through 2021, the rest of 2021 and into 2022? Can't believe we're talking about 2022
I know
already.
already. That's such a good question. So the way my business is growing at the moment, we've got a couple of more retained clients coming on board. So it's more about building that really trusted team around me to be able to look after those clients and deliver for those clients, and get my clients used to it not always necessarily being me, but feeling really confident with the other people that represent No Fluff Communications. So for me, it's building my little army. So that's going to be a focus. The 2 clients that are coming on board very soon will be retained clients for at least an annual basis. So it will be a really nice new challenge to understand that their target audience is and their sector in lots of detail. So that's the other exciting thing about marketing, is that you can work across all sorts of sectors, but you never know where you're going to end up. So I've got 2 new sectors to start upskilling myself in, which is quite exciting. And for me, it's really important. The whole reason I started working for myself was to have that work-life balance. And I know that's something that we're all chasing, the dream. But for me, it's when business is going well, is to remember it is not the be all and end all. The whole point of running this business was for me to work, to do something I love whilst looking after the family. So I don't have any grand plans to scale up as such. I'm quite happy working on that freelance consultancy basis, but it's about building a trusted team with the right clients.
Cool, brilliant. Well, I hope it goes really, really well for you.
Thank you.
It's been amazing talking to you this morning, Lisa. Thank you so much for your time. And hopefully your business will bloom over the next 12 months or so.
Lovely. Thank you, James. It's great. And I'll see you at the next OCC.
Yeah, brilliant. Thanks, Lisa.